Actually, the one that's upcoming.
Good morning. This is segment 2 with Brett Glass. This morning, it's Monday, and over the weekend in our southern bordered state, Colorado, there was some tech conference going on in Boulder, Colorado, Longmont and Boulder area. And Brett Glass, you had the pleasure of going, and off air you were telling me about some of the impressive innovations that were available for purchase and showing off, really expanding our horizons right in the tech world. Still going on, innovation still happening.
Oh yes, I was down at the Boulder County Fairgrounds, and despite their being called the Boulder County Fairgrounds, they're not all the way out in Boulder. They're actually in Longmont, Colorado, and they had an event which is called Lark Fest. Lark is the abbreviation for the Longmont Amateur Radio Club. Now, so some people are not even familiar nowadays with the hobby of ham radio. Basically, ham radio or amateur radio, the purpose of it is to educate people about science, technology, and engineering, and just general STEM stuff. And also to have, also to socialize, and also to aid the public in the event of emergencies. Hams play with radio. They communicate with one another all over the world. You can have a little teeny tiny transmitter at your house that can literally span the globe. And in the event of an emergency where the phone lines are down, where the cell phone, your cell towers lose power or they lose their connection to the rest of the phone system, you still can communicate using ham radio, and not just locally. You literally can transmit all the way around the world if you have the license to do that. So that's what this conference was about. And there was a flea market with all kinds of electronic gear, everything from the most modern stuff to vacuum tubes. Vacuum tubes the size of a softball or bigger, that were used in old-fashioned radio transmitters. There's a lot of interesting antique gear, antennas, and so people were taking home antennas to put up on their roofs. Some of them pretty big, as a matter of fact. People were carrying bundles of antenna elements out to their cars, and they also had some seminars where people asked for advice, and they had a panel of experts helping them to do various things with tech. Everything from computers to again radio, and this is a lot of fun. It's a great thing. There were kids there. It was very great to see a lot of young people there who were learning about physics, learning about science and technology. And then, of course, there were the old fogies who sit and shoot the bull on the radio, which who are also important because they mentor everybody else. They have years and years of experience in the field of amateur radio. A person who does that, who mentors younger people or people who are less experienced, that is called an Elmer. Don't know where the name comes from. Nobody really figured out where the term came from, but there are a lot of old Elmers there giving people advice about various things. And so that was a tremendous amount of fun to do. If you're interested in amateur radio, there is a local amateur radio club which will mentor you and help you if you get interested in learning more about the hobby. It's run out of the university. It's called the University Amateur Radio Club, or UARC. And you can find it online on the university's website. They have meetings the first Tuesday of every month. So there's one. Of course, there was one this month, and they do that every month. But in between, they do two other things. They have a regular mailing list, and also every Sunday night, if you tune your radio to the right frequency, they have a little meeting online. They call this a net. This is not, of course, the internet. But it's what they used to call a net, where everybody got together and they have a conversation. They talk about upcoming events. They have a roll call, and everybody gets a chance to check in. And for some of the older hands, that roll call literally serves as a welfare check, which is a good thing. And it's just a lot of fun. It's a combination of technology and being sociable. and that's the wonderful thing about the hobby. People are wonderfully social, and so that's going on. And then there's another event coming up, which people in Laramie might be interested in. If any of the anything I've just said piques your interest with regard to either old technology or new technology, there's another event related to that coming up this coming weekend down in Denver. The Vintage Voltage and Vinyl Expo, which is run by a company called Dana Kane Events, is going to be held in the Western Expo Hall, which is used, of course, for some of the livestock events down in Denver. That's going to be on Sunday, April 13th, and this is if you're interested in old-timey radio gear, especially fancy old antique radios, they show off collections of that are absolutely incredible. Fantastic old technology, but still brilliant technology. And if you're interested in old vinyl, if you're an enthusiast of old records, there are just tables and tables of records that you can go and choose from. They come out of estate sales and out of people's attics and things like that. It's wonderful. And again, that's going to be Sunday, April 13th. If you're interested in that, go online and search with your favorite search engine for Vintage Voltage Expo. You'll find that there. And you'll find a lot of the same people who are at the amateur radio events there, because people are interested in both. But in general, that's a lot of fun, and we have it right here in the region. Okay, you do have to drive maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, but it's still convenient to us here in Wyoming, and I plan to be down there and take advantage of that.
What got you invested in the annual LARC event? What attracted you to that particular event?
Well, I actually upgraded my amateur radio license there. They have testing. In order to get an amateur radio license, you have a basic test which makes sure that you understand a little bit about electronic circuits and about the technology, so that you don't interfere with things when you transmit. You know what you're doing. You know the rules involved in amateur radio. And LARCfest, the first time I went to it, I just browsed around the electronic junk. But then I went back, and I had I only had a general class amateur radio license, which let me do certain things, but not everything. And so I went ahead and looked through the books and saw what they were going to ask me, and went back and took the test there. They have it's a multiple choice test. It's not open book, so you do need to study a bit for it. And they grade you, and if you pass, then the FCC grants you, the Federal Communication Commission, that is, grants you the advanced license, and that's what I did. I went and got the extra class amateur radio license at that event. But in general, I go down there just to enjoy browsing around, and I always bring something back. I'll need a big 12-volt power supply to power one of my radios, and I might bring that back. One of the other things which was really showed off there that was really impressive was there was a little radio about the size of a credit card, or at least the size of a credit card from left to right, and then about an inch thick. That was a complete ham radio transmitter that could literally transmit around the world. You could take this out to a park, throw a wire over a tree, and then just start working with a little Morse code key. You could send your signal around the world. And it was just amazing, that it was miniaturized. The sound was really good on it. You could hear the transmissions and send and receive things. And a little teeny tiny Morse code key, just two little paddles that you use to send the Morse code. And this is being assembled by a fellow down in Fort Collins, literally in his garage. He 3D prints the case. He has the circuit boards partially made for him, and then it's sold as a kit. Yes, and you assemble it. You assemble it yourself by soldering some of the components on. Put the whole thing together, and darn, it's a complete radio, and it's a really good one. And this is the equivalent of equipment which used to take up an entire table. So this is I go to find things like that. It's just really impressive what you can discover down there.
I'm excited that there's such brilliance this close to us, Fort Collins. That's amazing. And 3D printing in and of itself is phenomenal. But that innovation, part of the LARC event in Boulder County.
And there are going to be more of these events. The Denver Radio Club, in the toward the middle end of the summer, is going to be hosting a big one in Brighton at the Adams County Fairgrounds near the airport. And that's going to be another big swap meet. That's a lot of fun to go to. And there are all sorts of other events in between, where if you want to learn about the technology, you can do that. Also, if you're interested in getting a ham radio license, but you don't necessarily want to shell out the money for the equipment, many of these clubs have equipment that you can use over the internet. You can literally hook up your computer, and just like you're making a Zoom call, you can get a picture of the front of the radio on your screen, and you can transmit and receive as if you had the radio on your desk. So if you want to stick your toe in the water before you buy something, you actually can do that remotely, and the clubs help you do it. So
what kind of investment is an individual looking at in order to get involved with ham radio?
Well, those little teeny tiny ones are under $100. If you want to do it with Morse code, which is there's a learning curve with that. If you just want to speak to people, it might cost you a little bit more. I'd say there are good radios that are on sale for maybe $300 to $400 that will do everything, not just the Morse code, but also let you talk with a microphone and shoot the bull with whoever you manage to contact. An antenna can be as inexpensive or as expensive as you like. You do need a good antenna for be able to get around the world, and that could be as simple as stringing a wire up into a tree, which costs very little, or you can buy a big fancy one that you mount on your roof. You can put a tower in your yard. The city ordinances fortunately have virtually no restrictions on amateur radio towers. If you want to put one next to your house, you can. And so this is the great thing about the hobby, is that yes, you can spend a lot of money on it if you want to get fancy, but you can also do it on a shoestring, and again learn a lot about physics, learn a lot about all sorts of international affairs, because you can talk to people all over the world, and just generally have a lot of fun with technology.
Around the world transmission and receipt, one of those topics that sparks my memory of working with KOWB 1290 AM radio in Laramie, and having letters come from as far away as Norway. Transmission hobbyists, they would transcribe what they heard, and in the letter they'd ask for verification of those transmissions on this date, at this time, specifically or vaguely what they heard, and they wanted confirmation, and they always asked for a sticker or some station giveaway type of things that they'd add to their collection, I presume,
or a postcard. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, there's a long tradition of this. This you don't even need a license to do, and I used to do this when I was maybe 10 years old. You can get a shortwave radio, and be a shortwave listener. And as a matter of fact, while you don't officially get a call sign if you're not licensed to transmit, there was a there was a magazine back in the day called that dealt with radio and electronics. It was called Popular Electronics, that would issue a call sign as a shortwave radio listener. And they weren't real call signs. They weren't issued by the government. They didn't authorize you to do anything. But it was a lot of fun. You could tune in international radio stations, and that was great fun to do. That you can do very inexpensively. You can buy a portable radio with shortwave capability for very little money. And it used to be, some stations still do it, that if you sent them a report of what you heard and when you heard it and what frequency you heard it on, they would send you something back called a QSL card. QSL is a code for acknowledging that you got a message. Hams have all sorts of codes that they exchange that begin with the letter Q. So you could get QSL cards from all over the world, and I used to collect those. I had them from Sweden. I had them from Germany. Radio Deutsche Welle had a very nice radio card. They still, by the way, they still transmit today internationally, and you can still get a QSL card from them. I used to listen to pirate radio stations back in the day. Way back in the 70s, I'm dating myself here, Spain was ruled by a dictator by the name of Generalissimo Francisco Franco. And the Basque area of Spain and far eastern Spain really didn't like being ruled by this dictator, and they kept on threatening to secede, and they had their own radio station which broadcast all sorts of revolutionary material about that. And the government didn't like their doing that, and so the Spanish government would try to jam them. They'd try to transmit an interfering signal. It was just noise that blotted out the Basque radio station, which was called Radio Euskadi. And what Radio Euskadi would do is they'd see that they were being jammed, and they would retune their transmitter. And so they would go across the radio dial, and the jammer would follow them.
Wow.
And so it was a game of cat and mouse on the airwaves, and you could listen to all of this as a shortwave listener, and it was a lot of fun to listen. It was also a lot of fun to listen to them saying rebellious things about not wanting to go along with the dictator. And here's the funny thing, Spain is obviously no longer ruled by a dictator, but Radio Euskadi survives to this day. As a matter of fact, they now broadcast on the internet. So they outlasted the pirate radio station, outlasted the official government. And that was the part of the fun of shortwave listening. You could hear things like that. Some of what you heard, especially from the USSR back in the day, was outright propaganda. And it was amusing to listen to the propaganda, listen to what the USSR wanted you to think about politics. Mm-hmm. And so that was a lot of fun. And again, you don't need a license to do this today. There is not as much activity as there used to be on the shortwave bands now that we have the internet. It's superseded a lot of it. But to this day, I was mentioning the German radio station Radio Deutsche Welle. The BBC still has shortwave transmissions. They are still bypassing censorship, just as Radio Euskadi did. They're broadcasting, for example, news into Ukraine, so that people there can be informed about what's really going on in the world. They're trying to broadcast into Russia, and to sort of get past the wall of censorship that they have there. They're trying to broadcast into China and tell people what's really going on in the world. The U.S. used to have a radio station that did that, called The Voice of America. Unfortunately, DOJ has just recently cut that, but other countries are still doing it. And so there's still a lot of bypass of censorship going on using shortwave radio.
How important is a transistor radio in today's emergency preparedness in your eyes, Brett?
Oh, it's absolutely essential. There's still a lot of emergency communications that go on over just AM and FM radio, and and the government still funds that. There are still emergency announcements. There's still radio service. So definitely have one. Make sure that it has batteries that work.
Crank power, alternate power capability.
Well, either that or just in general for emergency preparedness.
Batteries last a long time in
Yeah.
transistor radio generally.
Oh yeah, emergency preparedness, and there are some preppers here in the Laramie community, as we call them, people who are preparing for a total breakdown of civilization, and they're more experts on that than me. But generally, what these people will do is they will stockpile. They'll have a generator ready to go to generate electricity. You can charge the batteries from that. They'll have large stockpiles of food. They'll do other things to prepare for extreme disasters, and radio is a part of that, but it's only a small part of that. They're also they're also preparing to be completely off the grid, to have no electrical power, possibly not to have natural gas, possibly not to have all the things that normally keep civilization going.
Right. We appreciate your visit to the talk shop this morning in Studio 255 in the Laramie Plains Civic Center. Brett Glass with two segments this morning. We thank you for this one. It's unique and not always something that people pay attention to. Shortwave, ham, and AM/FM history and development today, tomorrow, and forward. What do you know regarding how to get involved locally? What's the club locally that you were talking about?
Yes, again, if you're interested in amateur radio, the local club is called the University Amateur Radio Club, or UARC, UARC, and you can find them online. Their website is part of the university website, so it's under uyo.edu, and you can easily search. Yeah, just any search engine will find it for you. So just type in UARC, University Amateur Radio Club, and it will pull it up. And again, this is a very friendly club. It's now being run by some very enthusiastic. For a change, the leadership is not the old fogies, but actually the youth, and they're going out and doing things like what they call a fox hunt, where you hunt for a hidden transmitter that's transmitting radio signals. And they're getting out in the park, and they did a winter field day where they set up a tent and camped out. And did amateur radio transmissions and tried to contact people all over the world. They do a summer field day. Last year, it was up at the summit, and if you pulled into the summit parking lot, you could go up there, and under the supervision, by the way, of someone who has an amateur radio license, you were allowed to use the radio too. And so they were handing the microphone to people and letting them talk. And that's a lot of fun. It's also a good way to get a taste of the technology. That's awesome. Anyway, if you're interested in that, look up UARC and arrange to come to one of the meetings. It's a lot of fun.
With 168 hours each week, the Talk Shop enjoys a morning show, Monday through Friday. It's broadcast on 93.5 FM, KOCA, Laramie. Now, if you are interested in having or considering or developing such a program, you're invited. RadioWorks@mail.com. Your invitation, send us an email with your proposal. You're invited. This is a community asset. This platform, the Talk Shop, operates as a public affairs-driven, public-minded information show. And our program is not one that has to be unique. You and yours might enjoy doing this. Do it with regularity, do it with consistency, and do it with the responsibility that is entrusted to you by perhaps 93.5 FM, and we'll welcome you as a colleague on the program. RadioWorks@mail.com, the email, or phone us 307-460-3087 for questions and details. Be sure to not miss your chance to register and win Colorado Rockies tickets with the Talk Shop. Those brought to you by Wild Marketing USA and the Talk Shop, along with Together We Can, the upcoming Friday engagement with featured speaker Alan West. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, 22-year veteran of the Army branch of service, will be at the Laramie Lodge, 582, the Elks Lodge in historic downtown Laramie, 103 South 2nd Street, and he'll talk about leadership and Together We Can, concepts that unite and not separate. We appreciate you listening to the Talk Shop. Brett Glass, myself, Eric Henderson, today and tomorrow, right here.
School.